Hey guys, welcome to the shop. So we're going to be looking at some gunsmith snake oil and some hardcore gunsmithing today. I wanted to start on this Mauser because I had a comment on my last video. I usually wind up deleting them because people get super hostile about them and I don't want to hear about it. Is you need to true the action threads and the this and the that, and you need to lap the bolt lugs, and you really don't. Um, what I've been learning on this is the number one thing for accuracy is how good is the barrel, and the number two thing for accuracy is the chamber massively oversized. Now, straightness relative to the bore is pretty important. Um, the methodology I use consistently cuts about a 1.25 to a 1.5 thousandths oversized chamber from SAMI minimum. Now, the reamer print I use, they say in an absolutely perfect world, you're cutting about a half the size over with them. I typically use climber reamers. If customers have strong preferences, I'm happy to use other ones. If not, that's just what I've been using. I've had very good luck with them. Now, why does that matter? So I have a Remington 742 chamber that's like 7 or 8 thousandths oversized from SAMI minimum. That's starting to get into the area of, oh wow, I've seen things that are 15 or 20 thousandths over SAMI minimum. It's much better for brass life if you don't have a gigantic chamber, but frankly, most people don't reload, so it doesn't matter. I find it does help accuracy a little bit. Headspace kind of matters, but not much. What really matters, as long as you don't have an oversized or crooked throat, as long as the throat area of the chamber is okay, you're good to go. The rest of it's kind of like, it helps. And again, this is all like opinion, guys. It's rigidity and setup is the big thing. I think what kills a lot of people chambering barrels is they don't have a rigid setup, and things shift when you start taking heavier cuts. Kind of knowing how hard you can grip it and rip it's pretty important in building a precision rifle. But the chambering in the action threads people hyper focus on. But what has made a bigger difference for me in getting guns to shoot well is kind of figuring out in a wood stocked rifle how to keep this section stable. And you don't need, like, your stock in a wood stocked gun is huge. How high a quality blank you use combined with how well bedded it is, combined with how stable it is, that makes a massive difference. Now, on Mausers, I pillar bed. I haven't done that on this stock yet, frankly, because I'm a little nervous too. I always get anxious about pillar bedding a Mauser because there's a lot to go wrong. It's pretty easy to ruin the stock at that point. I really should do it first, but I'm a procrastinator. So that pillar bedding for like 90% of people is going to make a bigger difference than lapping bolt lugs or truing action threads. One of the things with that is it's actually pretty hard to do a better job than the factory, even on these pretty wonky surplus Mausers. And you're kind of at odds. So I think truing action is 100% snake oil for like 99.999% of shooters. Everyone thinks they're shooting at like the 100-meter bench rest world, and they think that they need to have a gun that's built like that. But when it comes time to pay the bill, they freak out and they don't understand, why is it $4,000 for this rebarrel? So I tend not to do it. Honestly, I talk customers out of it. Sometimes I can successfully talk them out of it and they get the work done and they're like, wow, you were right. This shoots better than everything else. And it's like, yeah, because we use a good barrel, a good reamer, and you're shooting good ammunition. There's a lot more to, rifle accuracy than just you need to have a good receiver. I think that, in all honesty, a lot of this truing stuff is coming out of these action makers because they need a reason to sell you their $1,500 or $1,800 action when a new production Remington 700 is like $700. or how a 1500 is like $600. Why aren't you using one of those actions as a donor? Well, everything's so parallel and concentric and perpendicular, but that's really not going to make the difference. Is your shot to shot consistency in the barrel, in the stock, is what matters. Now, these drop in chassis where people don't do any epoxy bedding are still they shoot the lights out. They can shoot the circles around almost any wood stock gun. And that's because wood is not as consistent shot to shot as these aluminum chassis, and it's really hard to perfectly free float a wood stock in such a way where you're not getting any deflection in the forend touching the barrel inconsistently. Under recoil, you can see that, and the recoil impulse really does start before the projectile has left the barrel. So there's a lot to it. I don't build bench rest guns. I build very accurate hunting rifles. So again, also I have a different perspective on this. Now, usually what happens when there's a dick measuring contest is I can beat the guy with like his Sig Cross or whatever, $1,500 to $3,500 mass market target rifle people have. I can usually beat those guys, and this is assuming I've taken the time to actually like figure out a load whatever rifle I brought likes. In a good chunk of the time, honestly, I just grab some like Hornady American Whitetail or like whatever Federal blue box is lying around if we're shooting at 100 yards and beat them. Because a lot of this is people want to buy the super target guns because they think it's going to make them shoot better. Actually being able to shoot better is what's going to make you shoot better. That's more important. So there's really a lot more to accurate rifles than just the barrel. AR-15s are really bad about this. I got a Noveski in the safe. People think because we've spent more money, the gunsmith has charged me more money, we're going to get a better result. That's not necessarily the case. I'm not big on, if you pull anything away from this video and you want to keep it short, I am not big on adding extra unnecessary steps to any job. Some people don't like that, and they're like, well, you can't be competent because you can't true an action. It's like, I can true an action, but for me to actually improve on what the factory did, it's going to be like half a day in setup, and the machine's going to be on for like 30, 40 seconds. And then we're going to have non-standard barrel shanks. So if you ever want to rebarrel this gun down the line, you can't buy a short chambered barrel. You have to have one fitted. And does it matter? Not really. I mean, I tend to figure out and cut things on the fairly large side so we don't have as much slop when we're gronking on the barrel. But the other thing we get into, guys, is read Machinery's handbook and get an understanding of how strong threads are. You only need, I think it's like 3.5 threads for full clamping strength and rigidity. So as it turns out, like the barrel shank in a Mauser isn't what holds you back, because people used to say that because they're about this long, and the Remington 700 is a little bit longer, and a lot of these bench rest guns have super long barrel tenons. Doesn't matter. I think action truing is snake oil for, again, like 99.999% of rifles. And instead of truing in action, if that's your goal, don't use a Winchester 70, don't use a factory Remington 700, don't use a factory Howa, certainly don't use a Mauser. Mauser lock times are super long. Heavier weight firing pin spring is going to make a bigger difference in perceived accuracy in a Mauser than any action truing I can do here. I may have talked about it, but just for shits and giggles, I played with multiple bolts in a gun that all head spaced and didn't seem to matter for accuracy. Like within a standard deviation of what that gun was doing with a bolt, I had lapped for contact and trued the face on. Literally a bolt out of the junk pile, as long as it would clear the scope and cleared the or passed a field gauge, so it didn't close on my field gauge. Did not matter for accuracy. It's pretty hilarious. A lot of customers have never tested this stuff and just hear it and they repeat it, and people spend a shitload of money on high power and waste it on things they just don't, it turns out they don't need. The only reason I really lap bolts here is because one, customers expect it, and two, it covers my ass. It really reduces the likelihood of headspace moving over time as bolt lugs wear in. So if you bring me a brand new rifle, the reason we have a go, a no-go, and a field gauge is because as things wear, your headspace grows. So by me prematurely wearing in your receiver and bolt combination, I cover my ass and know, like, by the time the barrel's almost worn out, especially on some of these small bore guns where barrels will last 5 or 8 thousand rounds, I am protected and I don't have to worry about an unsafe condition developing. Real world, it doesn't matter. I think with modern firearms, even field gauges from SAMI are fairly conservative. If you look at CIP standards, they're a little bit roomier. But the thing is, I live and operate in the US, so I use American standards, regardless of whether I feel they're overly conservative or not. Because there are situations where unforeseen circumstances can occur, especially people reloading and using pistol powder instead of rifle. If their gun goes kaboom, I want to be able to defend myself in court, cover my ass, and be like, hey, that's not my fault. That's an ID 10T error. Write that one down. It'll make a lot more sense when you look at it. It's a fancy way of saying operator-induced malfunction. Now, this is another very controversial take. I think these guns aren't that bad. It's mostly the owners and gunsmiths who work on them that cause problems. This receiver does have some battering. This is a common issue in these with how the bolt lugs are cammed and actuated. The problem is, instead of addressing the underlying issue, in this case, the gun was fucking filthy. I am probably going to take a wire wheel and a Dremel to knock most of this stuff off. I want to just know what I'm dealing with. I want to clean the bolt in the chamber and make sure this doesn't close on a field gauge, because the bolts on these do wear out. This is probably going to get a pump conversion on it. I don't really like dealing with pump conversions, in all honesty. They make customers happy, but I think they're stupid. I would just fix the gun as is or cannibalize this to fix another one. But customers do get what customers want. I'm in the business of doing what people want, not necessarily what they need. So I won't add extra shit to the bill if you don't need it. But if you really tell me you want your action trued, and that's the difference between doing the work or not, I'll do it. I'm just going to tell you it's stupid. That's what's happening here. This guy really just needed to clean his shit and it would have been fine. The lubrication on these is very necessary. You need a lot of lubrication on them. You clean your shit, guys. Like, if you're going out hunting with one of these, like, lube it up inside. I've had some of these come in absolutely horrendous condition over the years. And as long as someone has not monkeyed with the bolt rails, they're fine. Once someone has monkeyed with them, you're kind of up shit creek without a paddle. It's pretty hard to get on video, but someone has taken a file to this rail here, and someone has taken a file to this rail here. So now what the bolt can do is the bolt can do this and nosedive. That peening on there makes it feel really rough, but it doesn't seem to impede function until it gets absolutely extreme. But part of the reason this happens is because you're not lubricating things internally. You need to lubricate things internally. These are guns that need to be taken apart and cleaned regularly. The problem with Remington is they didn't understand their target market, and when it takes a 3/4 inch wrench to disassemble your firearm, you might have fucked up. I can understand a screwdriver, but once you need a wrench to take your gun apart, I think you need to sit down long and hard and think about, are my customers actually going to do this? There is a reason all of the successful autoloaders of the last 30 years are toolless disassembly. That's just my take on it. But different strokes for different folks, and you can also tell the last person who took this apart is definitely a fucking idiot because they put red Loctite on this nut. Now, by making a difficult to disassemble firearm require a torch to take apart, you really need to sit down and think long and hard about, is this really a good idea? This customer could have saved a lot of money by sitting down and thinking, is this a good idea? And not trusting his friends. Now, I don't like these guns mostly because I see stuff like this on them all the time. I think the actual design is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. You know, it's not setting the world on fire. It's just, they're okay. I like these better than the Browning BAR. The Browning BAR is also a nightmare to clean, but they're about 3 or 4 times as much, and people bought them because they think they're better than these, and they really have all of the same problems. I pretty much tell people if I have one of those come in, it's going to be about $200 by the time I crack it open and deal with minor issues. Um, a lot of these I can fix for like $100 because it's strip it down, clean it, look at some of the underlying issues. Is the receiver starting to peen? Okay, have the conversation with the customer like, hey, look, your gun's on borrowed time. Um, I don't want to see you shooting the piss out of this because it's going to fall apart. And that's just what happens. The 7400s, I think, don't have this issue to the same extent. But my plan with this one is actually kind of ghetto rig it. So I'm going to use, hopefully, so I don't need to start sourcing a 7600 or what is it, 760 or 7600 trigger group because they're expensive. Hopefully be able to leave that spring in there. So this is more or less spring loaded to keep the bolt in battery. That is one of the things. I've seen some of these conversions and it's actually fucking horrifying. There's no way to put a finer point on it than that. They use the standard 742 trigger group with no lock on it, so there's nothing holding the guns in battery when you pull the trigger. And these do have some out of battery safeties, but they wear out and they're not perfect. So that's horrifying, guys. Don't do that. If you're going to do a pump conversion, don't half-ass it. If you're smarter, is just save up and buy one of the pumps on these. You know, they're expensive in New England, but they're pretty cheap everywhere else. I mean, in 2024 prices, it's probably going to cost you $500 or $600 by the time you either deal with shipping it to Almonds or find someone like me who's willing to do it. And Almonds doesn't give you all your parts back either, from what I hear. I've never dealt with them directly. There is one guy who does pump conversions around here, and like the blobs of weld I've seen on some of his guns are kind of scary. So thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed. I hope, you know, one of the key takeaways from this, guys, is try to figure out what you really need and work with people who have an understanding of what your actual goals and objectives are, and don't just smile and nod and take your money for things that are irrelevant and extraneous. Like, I feel bad for this guy because this receiver probably could have been saved before someone attacked it with a dull beaver, and now he's spending more money for it. And that's how I feel on barrel jobs. I don't like to pad those with the whole truing and that crap. Most people fuck that up bad enough that you're better off not doing it. And it's unfortunate because I think it's my Gunsmithing in 2024 video. I really talked about the whole range of experience, and this gun comes in like literally not even a couple days later. And this is a huge case of someone with more motivation than knowledge just really ruined a customer gun and wasted their money, which is completely unfair to them. I don't like to see that. But, you know, it happens. Unfortunately, this customer is pretty reasonable. He originally came in for a pump conversion, and I'm just like, hey, look, if I can do anything, I'd really rather send this back to you as a semi-auto. I'm not huge on the pump conversions. They do come with a lot of issues on them, and they're kind of hard to do a good, safe job on. So thanks for watching, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Happy holidays is a couple days before Christmas. I think we're going to see probably a vacation from me around Christmas time. I might do a 5-minute video here or there. I am kind of ready for a vacation. I'm shutting the shop down from from whatever. Today's Thursday, so I'm shutting down from the Saturday before Christmas until probably the following Friday. It depends how I feel. So hope you guys are staying safe and warm. Don't spend too much money on dumb crap you don't need.